Pandemics, Easter eggs, morality, and so much more, the cast of Amazon's Utopia open up about the new season. It's Kristen, and I'm super excited to share some insight on Amazon Prime's new series, Utopia. I got a chance to speak with the cast at a group roundtable junket, and they open up about the new series adapted from the 2013 UK show, which follows a group of young adults who get a hold of a cult graphic novel that comic book fans believe predicts disastrous epidemics. Consider subscribing if you like my videos, and drop down in the comments and let me know, are you excited for Utopia? Best known for her psychological thrillers like Gone Girl and Sharp Objects, Gillian Flynn shared what made her want to adapt Utopia.
The great thing, about seeing the original was that idea that it had a lot in common with the kind of themes and interests that I have. The idea of what's on the surface versus what's underneath. How we treat each other in front of other people versus behind closed doors, the twists and turns, and that ability to use genre to pull you through a story while you talk about kind of bigger issues. And so I really chimed with all that. At the same time, it was a different world than I normally inhabit. I normally write very psychological stuff, pretty internal. There's stories about, a husband and a wife, or an unreliable narrator, or a mother and a daughter, that, much more insular. Whereas I liked that this would challenge me. It was an ensemble, lots of different characters with different points of view. It was really literally taking place in the great big world. It was kind of where we are as a society right now, as we make choices about what we do with the planet, how we treat each other, all these different big sort of human vibing themes. And I really liked that. It was kind of exciting and scary at the same time.
What makes this series really interesting is that idea that there's this piece of media, in this case a comic book, that serves as a map to sort of send our characters on this big world-saving quest.
They mentioned it several times, different characters talk about Jessica's hero's journey or a sort of quest. Wilson's very well versed in the different sort of quest narratives, and certainly culturally it's very aware. So I wanted to play on that idea that this is Utopia at its heart is about a character, Jessica Hyde, who is then made a character within Utopia. And so it's this kind of layer of an anti-hero who's created as a hero, who then has a mythology that you'll find out in episode 8. I play with that a lot, I think, in my different forms. I deliberately, when I did Gone Girl, I had dueling narrators who were both writers, because I liked that idea of two writers trying to outspin each other and out narrate the story for the reader. And so I've always been really attracted to that meta-ness, so that it's not the classic hero's journey, because I suppose, Jessica Hyde, and this is thanks to Dennis Kelly, did not, the UK creator did not, make Jessica Hyde a natural hero, so I've always been fond of finding oneself in a position where you're rooting for an anti-hero. I love at the end of Silence of the Lambs, where Hannibal Lecter's slipping away, and you're like, go Hannibal, and then it's like, wait, he's a cannibal, what am I doing? I liked having those kind of, finding yourself and having empathy for someone who does bad things, because I just think ultimately that's acknowledging a kernel of humanity in each of us.
Jessica Hyde is a really fascinating character. Before we meet her, she's just seen as this fictional character, so everyone puts her on this pedestal. But when it turns out that she's a real-life person, we get to meet someone who's really flawed, who does a lot of questionable things. She's really not afraid to go there. And Sasha Lane shares what it was like exploring Jessica Hyde as a character.
I loved how complex she was, and I loved how Gillian had written her. And there was a couple of things that really were important to me. One, I wanted to find something that I could off the fly think of her as, which is where I got the feral cat from. I think it really every time I would think of that, I was Jessica Hyde. But I also wanted to bring in the emotional elements, things that can make you start to see her in ways. And I love balance. I love the duality of it, of is she good, is she bad? That was not a bad decision, but it was for the better of the situation. I wanted her to really be human. And I mean that in ways that she is this comic book character and she was put on this pedestal, but you're about to meet the real Jessica Hyde. And the real Jessica Hyde isn't, in your cool little comic book story. The real Jessica Hyde is a badass, but she does not have to be dressed in a leather jacket, skin tight jeans, and boots in order to get her job done. She's really in the streets. She's really on the run. Where is she going to find that? Everything is practical. Everything is for the swiftness of it. The way she views time is, I don't have time to waste, and I do not care about you wanting your moment, because your moment does not work for me and I have things to do. So there was a lot about her that I think you haven't seen in a lot of characters. And so I really wanted to give my all to that and make sure that she is something that is not just Jessica Hyde, the comic book character, but like, this is Jessica Hyde, and like always, and you're going to remember that.
John Cusack plays Dr. Kevin Christie, an entrepreneur with an agenda to make the world a better place at any cost, walking a fine moral line. I found it really interesting that Utopia is John Cusack's first TV series regular role, and he shared what made this the right project to make that move, as well as a little bit more insight into what his character is thinking.
The kinds of films I do where you'd have sort of morally ambiguity was kind of a value, and you could do things that way. And show kind of flawed human beings and all that stuff. That space is now on TV, I think, a little bit more, where movies are more like big tentpole movies, or they're meant to be like, they all have to like try to cannibalize each other to get awards and the Golden Globes, and and they're super important, or they're super big. The space that used to, mid-sized movies, like, I don't know, like High Fidelity or something. I don't know if a studio would make that today. The character is too human and fucked up and things like that. So to get Gillian Flynn doing TV and doing a conspiracy thriller that's remaking that great Utopia TV show and adding a whole big tech element to it, the expectations were very high. And it was a really nice phone call to get, because it's like, you're getting Gillian Flynn wants you to do a show in Chicago. And so that's very nice to be wanted and to be asked to do something. And then I read the script. I read it in one sitting. I thought it was just fantastic writing. Somebody is going to have to make choices, moral choices, that are going to entail a lot of people suffering and dying for the greater good. So you see it through history and stuff too. Like, remember during the Vietnam War, Robert McNamara, I think it was Robert McNamara, one of those guys, they said, the question was, how much evil do you have to do good? And so I was talking with Gillian. I said, we need to put this in. We need to put this in the piece, and so we did. And I think it harkens back to a lot of those kind of questions, which are like moral questions that are unresolvable. But one thing for sure is sometimes the treatment is worse than the actual disease. Christie is somebody who's facing the global threats of global warming and food and water shortages, all the things that are out there, and he's someone who's willing to take on those kinds of moral questions, I guess.
Rainn Wilson plays a scientist who has a chance to make a big difference when it comes to the pandemic, and explains how this show twists right and wrong on its head.
Dr. Michael Stearns is a basement-dwelling scientist who's unrespected and ignored, and then he happens to have be a specialist in a virus that seems to be causing a pandemic, and he's thrust into a huge spotlight. So he's trying to do the right thing. He has tremendous integrity. Maybe he's a villain. Maybe he's an unwitting villain. Maybe he's a hero. We don't really know. So many characters in this show, heroes seem to kill people and villains seem to save other people's lives. Things are kind of really turned upside down over the course of the show. So I just play him as truthfully as I can.
Sasha Lane's Jessica Hyde starts off as a lone wolf, but really becomes the leader of this unlikely group of nerds. She shares what it was like working with the cast.
I loved them. It's funny because this was so real. I remember after we got done with rehearsals, a couple of them, the nerds were like, oh, let's go grab something to eat and all that. And I was like, I'm gonna be straight up with you. I do not interact well. I don't hang out. I don't really like, it's not personal. I was like, if I ever say no, it's not personal. I'm just weird. And that's kind of, we just built that dynamic as far as like an understanding, like, Sasha, she might say yes. She might just dip and be like, I don't know what to do. So I think filming with them, especially after having those moments, it was kind of beautiful because I think they were their characters in a way, obviously not to the full extent, but they were perfectly chosen. But I think we kind of built our relationship off screen. So when we got on screen, it made the dynamic even better. And I just loved threatening Ian with like, I am so ready to take you out. I'm going to talk to Gillian and, just stuff like that. So it was kind of fun to like play around with them and work with them.
I think the big star of this show has to be the actual graphic novel itself that it's built around. In the original UK series, you never see the book, but Gillian Flynn discusses what went into her deciding to actually show the book.
That was so much fun. I made the decision early on. In the UK version, you don't see Utopia in and of itself, but you don't need to because visually it's so sleek and it's making all these calls and echoes and resonating with that world. So once I decided to film this more in keeping with kind of 70s conspiracy thrillers and that would be at its core, I realized that I wanted to see Utopia. I wanted to see why all these people were obsessed with it. I wanted to see if I would be obsessed with it. I wanted, to be able to put these Easter eggs in it and really, really use it. Possibly a dash of it was so I could give my dad a copy for Christmas. But I liked that it could be this physical thing that people could handle and really pore over and debate over, and you would see it. And there was this, an artist that I've always loved. His name's Joao Ruas. It's Joao, last name Ruas. And he's an artist that I've loved. I discovered him doing Bill Willingham's Fables years ago. And I was always like, man, he's like Arthur Rackham on acid. Like he specializes in children and fairy tales and animals, but they all look so fucked up and disturbing. And I was like, we got to get him. Sometimes it was writing moments that I knew would just help frankly move on exposition that we could kind of cut away to as getting into the mythology. Sometimes it was deliberate Easter eggs that could be hidden. It was to be used in all different ways, but it was mainly just to open up that world so we could really see why and how this thing had come into being and obsessed so many people, and he certainly did that.
Jessica Roth and Desmond Borges play two characters, Sam and Wilson Wilson, who are obsessed with decoding the truth behind Utopia. They open up about getting into that analytical mindset and if there's secrets hidden not just in the comic, but in the series itself.
Oh, I think there are 150% hidden messages. I think the amazing thing about the show and what Gillian has created and the incredible artist João Ruiz, who is from Brazil, and he created all of the artwork for Dystopia and Utopia. And I think that Gillian and Joao have hidden Easter eggs that not only will audiences be able to go back and rewatch episode 1 once they finish the series and be like, oh my God, there's that thing and it's pointing to X, Y, and Z and that's why this happens. But I bet if we are lucky enough in season 2 and season 3 and season 4 and season 5, you will realize the true depth of the rabbit hole that has been created kind of by these graphic novels and the incredible artwork and the wit and intelligence of Gillian Flynn. And in terms of jumping into Sam's exploration of these comic books, it was such a joy because it all was tactilely there. And the way that they hid the messages within the pages was so genius. And sometimes it took us a while to find it. So then when we did, we had the real life excitement and adrenaline rush of discovering something. And I mean, when we're kids, all we want to do is find a treasure map and go on a giant quest. And so Sam and Wilson get to do that, but with the stakes being the highest that they could be to save the mother effing world. So it was a joy.
For Wilson, he doesn't have a choice in this. Figuring out dystopia and leading us into utopia is his life's work. And at the end of that, regardless if he's alive or not, he will have fulfilled his purpose. I think ultimately he will be satisfied with whatever the ending is, as long as he gets to conclude it logically for himself. And as far as Easter eggs go, I will just say, follow the bunnies.
It's safe to say that no one really knew just how relevant this project was going to be when it comes to conspiracies and pandemics in today's society. Gillian shares what she hopes people will take away from the series in regards to that.
What I was most attracted to was the conspiracy element, and was that idea, and it's only gotten more so since 2013, that we're starting to treat truth as if it's malleable, that we're starting to treat opinion as on an equal level as facts. And and I do understand that there are some things that are always going to be pure opinion, but there is such a thing as truth. And I think when we start going down the road that we debate that is not the case, or putting ourselves deliberately into a place where we can be manipulated and manipulate very easily. And I think you look at, whether you're left, right, whatever your politics are, whatever it is, when you start treating things that can be proven as things that can be just purely opinion because you like the way it's displayed, or you like the way it's phrased, or anything like that, I truly believe it's dangerous for society. And unless we can all agree that truth is truth, and opinion is opinion, then we're going down a very dangerous place. And certainly we've seen that in the pandemic, and we've seen that in the fires recently. I mean, and we're being played by any number of political concerns, business concerns. We're completely falling for it. And, so to me, it shouldn't be who has the best spin wins. That shouldn't be the factor here. We're going down a dangerous road when we're, and it's not just purely don't be in the echo chamber of the left or right, get a variety of opinions. It's literally respect that there is such a thing as truth, and have some sort of basic agreement on that.
Catch Utopia Season 1 premiering September 25th on Amazon Prime. If you guys like this one, you can check out more of my interviews right over here, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya!